The WWE Golden Age Mystery. What happened to Scott Casey?
You know what's crazy? There was a cowboy from Texas who defeated Adrian Adonis for a World Heavyweight Championship. He beat Tully Blanchard, for another major title. He trained Booker T, yes, that Booker T, and spent nearly 2 decades conquering wrestling territories across America. But when he walked through the doors of the World Wrestling Federation in 1987, it's like someone hit the erase button on his legacy. His name was Scott Casey, and today I'm going to tell you the story of one of the most talented wrestlers you've completely forgotten about. Because what happened to Scott Casey in the WWF is one of the most frustrating mysteries of the Golden Age. And brother, you need to hear this story. I'm talking about a real cowboy, not a gimmick, the real deal.
Part 1. The Texas Beginning. Scott Casey was born on January 11th, 1954, in Amarillo, Texas. This wasn't some kid who watched wrestling on TV and decided to become a cowboy. Scott Casey was a cowboy. Amarillo, Texas in the 1950s and 60s, that's where real cowboys were made. And when he stepped into a wrestling ring around 1970, he brought that authenticity with him. Now, if you were a wrestling fan in Texas during the 1970s and early 80s, you knew Scott Casey. You knew him. Because for 9 years, Casey was a cornerstone of Joe Blanchard's Southwest Championship Wrestling. And for those of you who remember, Southwest Championship Wrestling out of San Antonio was the real deal. That was where future stars cut their teeth. That was where Tully Blanchard learned the business from his father, Joe. And Scott Casey, he wasn't passing through. He was winning. Listen to this resume. Casey won the NWA Western States Heavyweight Championship, not once, but twice, defeating Jerry Briscoe and Bruiser Brody Frank Gudish in 1976. That's Bruiser Brody, one of the most feared men in wrestling history. He captured the NWA Texas Heavyweight Championship in 1977. He won the NWA Central States Tag Team titles with Mike George, defeating Buck Robley and Crusher Blackwell in December 1977. These weren't secondary titles, folks. These were championships that meant something in the territory days.
Part 2. The Championship Glory Years.
But here's where Scott Casey's story gets really good. August 30th, 1983. Remember that date, because that's when Scott Casey defeated adorable Adrian Adonis to win the Southwest Championship World Heavyweight Championship. Adrian Adonis, golden blonde hair, cocky attitude, future WWF star, and Scott Casey beat him for the world title. But Casey wasn't done. Oh no. Just 12 days later, September 11th, 1983, Casey stepped into the ring with Tully Blanchard, the boss's son, one of the most technically gifted wrestlers of that era. And what did Scott Casey do? He beat him too. He defeated Tully Blanchard to capture the Southwest Heavyweight Championship. Think about that for a second. In less than 2 weeks, Casey held 2 major championships. He was the man in Southwest Championship Wrestling, the top guy. And in September of that same year, he also captured the Southwest Tag Team Championship with Buddy Moreno. 3 championships, 1 month. That's not a jobber. That's not enhancement talent. That's a star. Casey continued his success when he moved to World Class Championship Wrestling in 1985. For those of you who remember World Class, you know that was the Von Erich territory. That was Dallas. That's where wrestling was exploding on television across America. And Scott Casey, he fit right in. He was managed by the beautiful Sunshine. He feuded with Jim Cornette and the Midnight Express. He introduced the great Kabuki as his ally, then feuded with Kabuki when he turned heel. He battled John Tatum and his manager Missy Hyatt. And on April 1st, 1985, Casey defeated Dennis Condrey for the vacant world-class television championship. Scott Casey was over. The fans loved him. He was winning. He was main eventing. He was everything a wrestling territory could ask for in a top babyface. And then he went to the WWF.
Part 3. The WWF Arrival. What went wrong? June 13th, 1987. WWF Superstars. Scott Casey makes his debut, teaming with Lanny Poffo, the Genius's brother, in a loss to Demolition. And right there, something should have clicked for WWF management. This was a man who had headlined shows across Texas and the Southwest for over 15 years. This was a man who had beaten Adrian Adonis and Tully Blanchard for world titles. This was a man who looked like a cowboy because he was one. But instead of building him up, instead of giving him the Ron Bass feud that could have made both men stars, the WWF slotted Scott Casey as an upper-level opening card jobber. Let me translate that for you. They made him a guy who would lose to the stars but beat the other jobbers. He was too good to be a total nobody, but not pushed enough to matter. That summer of 1987, Casey lost to Rick Rude, lost to the Honky Tonk Man, lost to Randy Savage, lost to Demolition over and over again. Sure, he picked up wins against guys like Iron Mike Sharpe, Steve Lombardi, the Brooklyn Brawler, and Jose Estrada, but those were the jobbers. Those were the guys at the very bottom. On September 24th, 1987, Casey finally got his first televised victory on primetime wrestling, teaming with S.D. Jones to defeat the Shadows. His first televised singles victory didn't come until October 15th, when he pinned Iron Mike Sharpe. Think about that timeline. Casey debuted in June. His first singles went on TV wasn't until October. 4 months of losing before they let him get his hand raised on television. Throughout 1988, the pattern continued. Casey would face upper-level competition, Danny Spivey, Terry Gibbs, the Iron Sheik, and lose. He'd face fellow jobbers like Barry Horowitz, Richard Charland, and Pete Doherty, and win. He was stuck in wrestling purgatory. But then came November 24th, 1988, Survivor Series. Part 4. Survivor Series. The Final Hope. Scott Casey was given the opportunity of a lifetime, sort of. B. Brian Blair of the Killer Bees was injured, and Casey was selected as his replacement in a massive 10-man elimination tag team match. His team? Jake the Snake Roberts, Tito Santana, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and Ken Patera. That's star power. The opposing team? Andre the Giant, Rick Rude, Mr. Perfect, King Harley Race, Dino Bravo. That's a murderer's row of talent. This was Scott Casey's moment. This was his chance to show the world and WWF management what he could do on the big stage. Survivor Series was one of the WWF's biggest events. This was prime time. And what happened? Casey was eliminated relatively early by Dino Bravo with a simple side suplex. No big spot, no moment of glory, just gone. That was it. That was Scott Casey's highest-profile WWF appearance, Survivor Series 1988.
and it didn't lead to anything. His appearances became more sporadic in 1989. He wrestled only 11 matches that entire year after appearing in well over 50 the year before. His final match of 1989 was against Barry Horowitz on March 24th in Salt Lake City, Utah. And after that, Scott Casey quietly left the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. He made one more appearance on March 26, 1991, teaming with Rob Allen against the Orient Express at a Superstars taping. And then, Scott Casey retired from professional wrestling. Just like that. No farewell, no tribute, no acknowledgement of nearly 20 years of excellence in the ring. He just disappeared.
Part 5. Life After Wrestling. The Legacy. So, what happened to Scott Casey after wrestling? Well, he didn't ride off into the sunset. He went to work. Casey took a job at a car dealership. He worked in construction. Eventually, he became a security officer at the Luxor Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, where he worked for many years. But here's the beautiful part of Scott Casey's story, the part that matters. Even though his in-ring career was over, Scott Casey became a trainer for Nick Bockwinkel's UWF International Wrestling Promotion. And you want to know who he trained? You want to know who Scott Casey is credited with breaking into the business? Booker T. That's right, Booker T. 5-time WCW champion, 6-time World Tag Team champion, King of the Ring, World Heavyweight champion, Hall of Famer, one of the greatest performers of the Attitude Era and beyond. Booker T exists because Scott Casey trained him. In 2006, the Cauliflower Alley Club, one of the most respected organizations in professional wrestling, honored Scott Casey as an inductee because the people who knew, who understood the territory days and what it took to be a professional, they recognized Scott Casey's contributions. And in April 2019, Casey published his biography titled One Last Ride. Finally, his story was told in his own words. Scott Casey's story isn't just about one man. It's about an entire generation of wrestlers who dominated the territories, who were stars in their regions, who held championships and headlined shows. But when they got to the bright lights of the WWF, they were treated as afterthoughts. The WWF in the late 1980s was building mega powers. They were building WrestleMania. They were building Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage and Andre the Giant into larger-than-life characters. And in that environment, a real cowboy from Texas, a man who could actually wrestle, who had real credentials, who had beaten real stars, didn't fit the cartoon mold they were creating. Scott Casey deserved better. He deserved a run with Ron Bass. He deserved a television championship reign. He deserved to show the WWF audience what fans in Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas had known for over 15 years, that Scott Casey was the real deal. But you know what? Scott Casey is still a success story because he stayed in wrestling. He gave back to the business. He trained future champions. He wrote his story down so it wouldn't be forgotten. And now, all these years later, we're here talking about it, remembering him, honoring him. That's what we do here at the Wrestleverse. We don't let these stories die. We don't let the unsung heroes fade away. So if you enjoyed this deep dive into Scott Casey's career, do me a favor, hit that like button. Leave a comment and tell me, do you remember Scott Casey? Did you see him in Southwest Championship Wrestling? Did you catch his matches on WWF Superstars? I want to hear your memories. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the Wrestleverse. Ring that notification bell
because every week we're bringing you the stories that shaped wrestling history. The forgotten rivalries, the overlooked champions, the moments that made us fall in love with this business. This is the Wrestleverse, where the legends live forever. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.